Bitcoin and Ethereum could be in trouble, and I'm going to show you why in today's video. We'll talk key levels and also some potential targets, an update on my trade, and also the latest on Tether dominance. And this video is sponsored by Blowfin. I've been trading crypto with them for over a year, and they've been incredible. I've had no issues with them, and for a limited time, they're giving away a $300 deposit bonus when you use my link and deposit at least $2,000. And if you deposit at least $1,000, I will give you lifetime access to our VIP group. That includes my trades, my trade ideas, exclusive videos, and also the course I just put out. So be sure to check out the link in the description of this video and sign up today. So looking at Bitcoin, guys, BTC, USDT, we have the market coming off of these recent all-time highs right around 110. So we talked about this in the last video, but you can see that over here, we had Bitcoin climbing above this area. Okay, so these highs from back here in late 2024 and early 2025. And we had the market, okay, Bitcoin breaking above 110, closing above it, closing right back below. Guess what became resistance? 110. So we talked about this in the last video. And this move right here, okay, this move above 110 is exactly where I was starting with a starter short position that I announced in real time in VIP. So we talked about this at length, but I was getting short through here just above 111 with the idea of adding below 106. And I've done that now on this retest through here. So I mentioned this also in VIP as well. And the reason for this is 106 was always the level I was watching for the potential failure. Because if you look back here, yes, we had these highs up here. However, a lot of times the closing prices and the majority of the touches are the ones that you have to watch here. And for this range high back here, this was 106. Furthermore, if you look over here at the recent price action, you will notice that Bitcoin treated this area as a pivot recently. So we have these highs right back here. We've got these lows. And you can see where Bitcoin broke below it on Thursday. So the bottom line here is that as long as Bitcoin is below 106, this market is relatively bearish, or at least has a little bit of a bearish tilt to it, where we could get that pullback down here into some of these zones. The only way that this gets invalidated is if Bitcoin breaks back above 106 on a daily closing basis. Moving above it intraday, guys, is not going to matter. You would have to get a daily close, at least one daily close back above 106 to negate this. And furthermore, too, you can also see where Bitcoin recently broke this April trend line that we've talked about. So looking at something like the 8-hour time frame, you can see where it is pretty clean off of these lows down here. You've got touches like this one down here. You've got this one through here, these two recently, and then the breakdown and, almost a retest through here, pretty close to it. And then we got the sell-off. So again, we have several factors here pointing to a potential pullback for Bitcoin. Following the failure at 110, also closing below 106, also closing below that April trend line. So there's a lot right now pointing to lower prices. Furthermore, if you look at the price action through here, and I've talked about this a lot on X, but you can see the two highs right back here, very aggressive breakout and a shallow retrace. So what this means is that there is an imbalance down here right around 97. So imbalances like this tend to serve as magnets for price because market makers want as much liquidity in play as possible, right? So if that's the case, knowing that there are open orders down here that did not get filled because of how aggressive this was, then market makers are probably going to want to push the market back down here into this area following this breakdown. Okay, so these right here, these breakdowns that we saw were the technical triggers. This down here is the potential magnet right around 97. Now, here's where you've got to be a little bit careful though, because right now Bitcoin is finding support right there at 104,800. Okay, so 104.8 is going to be the level to watch right now off of this closing price from back here. So you can see that this was also a key factor for Bitcoin back here, resistance, support right here, and support once again today. So this does not mean go out and short the market at current levels because we could still get a retest, a further retest up here, even an intraday push above this mark. Okay, so you've got to be careful while the market is above this 104.8 level because this is going to be critical support. And you'll see this even more when we look at the Tether dominance chart. It is very clean on that chart. So again, just to recap here, I do have a short position on. It is well in profit, and right now the market's testing 104.8. Get below that though on a daily closing basis, punch below this on the daily chart, and we're looking at this move down here toward these lows around 100,000, which is also a psychological level, and then we have that imbalance around 97. Now, we also have the chance too for Bitcoin to come down here and test this mid-range right down here. So if you'll notice, this is a very clean range here for Bitcoin, right? So you have the lows down here, you have these highs, you have the failure at 110, the failure at 106, and then you have this mid-range through here, which is also incredibly clean, right around 92,000. So we also have the potential for, and keep in mind too, that we are moving into the summer months. A lot of times markets range during the summer. So this right here could represent the summer range for Bitcoin following the failure at 110 and 106. So in other words, if the market were to drop back here within the range, okay, and give us that confirmation below, areas like this around 104.8 and drop back in here, then this right here, this range, okay, could dictate the next few months over the summer. And that's important to understand because it gives you context to any trades that you're taking so that you're not just blindly going out there and buying and selling. You kind of have some context behind, the current range for Bitcoin. So again, drop back here within this, which I think it already has done, but I would like to see a little bit more here. And I do think that this is probably going to be the summer range for Bitcoin, over the next few months, which is great if you're a trader, to be honest, because this is a $15,000 range. So there's a lot of opportunity here for BTC. All right, so let's take a look at Ethereum. And if you guys are enjoying this content, if it is helping, be sure to subscribe to the channel and also smash that like button because these videos and blog posts do take a lot of time to put together. So looking at Ethereum, we have the market reclaiming this significant area back here. So if I go to something like a 3-day, you can see where this was a very significant reclaim for Ethereum. And in fact, you can see these range lows back here. Okay, so this is a linear chart. That's why the price, might look a little skewed here. But a lot of times linear is the way to go, even with crypto, when you get into ranges like this. So you have this area back here around 2000, just above that mark that Ethereum recently reclaimed. So that in and of itself looks bullish. However, the issue here is that you do have inefficiencies or imbalances down here just above 2K, okay, following that reclaim because this move was so aggressive. So even if you look at the daily time frame, notice these days right here where we saw absolutely no pullback into these. Okay, now I'm not saying that we will move as low as this down here. However, I do think these lows, given this current range, are open for business. In other words, a retest down there does seem likely at the present. Okay, and the reason for that is because there is liquidity down here in this area. I shared the liquidation heat map on X the other day. And we also have this failure up here at 2730. So looking at something like the 4-hour time frame, you can see where we have highs that built up through here, which meant liquidity above this. Okay, so short liquidations above here. We saw Ethereum close above, close right back below. So this right here is a fake out or deviation. And a lot of times when you do get this, you end up getting that move to the opposite end of the range. Okay, so in Ethereum's case, it would be a move down here toward these lows. All right, so right around 24, maybe just below that. So I do think that that is the target here, or at least it's my target over the coming days. However, one thing that you've got to be careful of right now is if you look at the daily chart, you can see here that we have a bearish candle, okay, with a long upper wick. And a lot of times markets, the crypto market especially does like to fill wicks like this. And so there are two scenarios, two ways that this could play out. One is we get Ethereum moving up here within the next couple of days to fill this in, and then reversing lower from here to target some of these lows, including that area just below 2400, or we get the market moving lower first, and then this up here becomes a magnet of sorts, where we get the push down here, test these lows, maybe sweep them, and then we get that return to the range and a retest of 2730. So a couple of ways this could play out. This does not mean that you want to go out and just buy here, targeting this level. That could work out, but given the failure that we saw yesterday here at 2730, it does look relatively bearish. And again, Bitcoin is also breaking below 106. So I'm not saying that this is bullish right now. However, there is that potential where you get the move up here first to fill in this wick from yesterday, and then you get a sell-off from here down here toward those lows. Okay. So if anything, in just my opinion, never financial advice, but in my opinion, if you're looking for anything here, you're looking for shorts up here around 2730 against that long upper wick that we saw yesterday. Okay. Now, one interesting factor here too, if we do get this move up here toward this area to fill in that wick, followed by a rotation lower, the 50% of this. So if I turn on my magnet tool here and snap it right to the high up here, down here to the open price from yesterday, you can see where the 50% actually comes in exactly with those recent highs. So that's also interesting here that the 50% of yesterday's wick here, the upper wick, lines up exactly with those previous range highs that failed during Thursday's session. So really interesting factor there that could also indicate a retest up here, before we get the move lower. But again, guys, I have to stress that this does not mean the market will come up here and fill in this wick right away. This could simply just be a case where we get the market moving lower first, taking out this area, hitting those long liquidations down here first, then we get the target up here at 2730. Okay, so a couple of ways that this could play out. Obviously nobody knows what is going to happen here, but I do think that this is your range right now for Ethereum, especially following that failure on Thursday. And that's also especially true with Bitcoin, like I said, dropping below 110 and also 106, because obviously we know that Bitcoin and Ethereum tend to move together. So the last thing you want to do is, in my opinion, is to go buying Ethereum expecting the market to hit, 3K or higher after Bitcoin just broke below 106. Obviously things can change, but as of right now, guys, I mean, the market does look relatively weak here following some of these failures that we've seen so far this week. Okay, so a couple of scenarios to play out there, but again, I do think that this is your current range that you're looking at for Ethereum. Now, last up, this would not be complete without talking about Tether dominance. You guys that follow me on X know that I love this chart only because it is so incredibly clean. And when the market was back here, what I mentioned on X, in fact, I drew an arrow path, showing the market doing this, okay? And I draw these paths not because I'm trying to tell you where the market is going to go, because I don't know where the market's going to go. Nobody does. But I do it to make clear, what my anticipation is for a given market. And so far, I mean, it's playing out perfectly. We saw the market test this area around 4.37, which if you were looking for a reaction from the crypto market, which by the way, if you guys are not familiar with this chart, this is essentially the inverse of Bitcoin. Tether dominance tends to move inversely to Bitcoin and Ethereum. Not exact, but for the most part, that is true. And you can see that we had this area down here, this critical pivot right around 4.37. So that was the high for Bitcoin, this right here. And I mentioned this on X the other day. Okay, so before it even happened, we were talking about 4.37, perfect retest off of that level. And this too is why we saw the overnight bounce from crypto. Okay, so between Thursday and Friday, we saw the bounce from crypto because of this level up here. Okay, and obviously this lines up with support on Bitcoin as well. But this is really, really clear here on Tether dominance, this resistance area, which you can see is still serving as resistance today, right around 4.7. Now, just like with Bitcoin and Ethereum, and especially with Bitcoin, we do have an imbalance up here in this area around 5%. So this is the red box I have up here. You can see resistance here, but also this is an imbalance, not just on the daily, but also if we go to a weekly time frame, you can see that back here, we have not had a retest up here following these lows. Okay, so we had these lows. We had the market breakdown, absolutely no retest up here just yet. So this is going to be an imbalance for Tether dominance around 5%. Doesn't mean that it will happen, but these tend to serve as magnets for a market. And if Tether dominance does come up here and test the 5% area over the coming days, okay, so testing this area up here, getting above 4.7, obviously it has to break above these highs. But if we do see this over the coming days, this would probably equal Bitcoin down there around maybe 96, 97, down there into that pocket of liquidations and also that imbalance. All right, so a lot to unpack here, guys, but right now the charts are incredibly clean. So I really favor trading right now just because, again, we have some really clean levels to play. And even if we see Bitcoin drop back here into this range, guys, if you're a trader, this is your ideal scenario going into the summer months, because again, you have this very clean range to play that is $15,000 from, bottom to top, and it's going to offer a lot of opportunities. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to that, if we do drop back there within the range for some opportunities. But I do think as far as Tether dominance goes, guys, we have seen the retest down here at 4.37. The market is starting to perk up now a little bit, giving us almost a little inverse head and shoulders here. And if it can get above 4.7, I do think that 5% mark is next. Obviously, no guarantees, but we do have a breakout from this April trend line as well. All right, so all in all, guys, markets look, the crypto market looks relatively bearish right now. It's not the end of the world. I do think that this kind of stuff is very common in crypto. We see this a lot where the market sweeps highs like this and then comes down here back within the range and testing the mid-range or potentially lower. But right now, I do think the mid-range is a great target, along with that area around 97, which is that imbalance from these highs back here in early May. All right, guys. So, right now for Bitcoin, guys, 104.8, like I said, is key support. Get below that, we're looking at 100, potentially 97. And 106 is going to be the key here. That's resistance right now. It's also the invalidation level. If Bitcoin were to get back above this, then the pullback scenario is off the table. And for Ethereum, again, we have the market dropping back here within the range following Thursday's failure to get above 27.30. I do think that looks bearish. So we could still see the market come up here and fill in this upper wick here from Thursday's session. So keep that in mind. But with this failure here and also knowing that there is liquidity down here around 23.60, I do think we have that potential for the move lower. Just be aware though, like I said, we could still see a move up here toward this resistance first before we get that sell-off. All right, guys, I hope that's helped. Keep it locked in here. Subscribe to the channel, smash the like button, and don't forget to sign up with Blowfin and claim your $300 deposit bonus. Deposit $1,000 or more and get lifetime access to VIP. Trade well out there and have a great weekend.